Hey, what's up, everyone? AJ Writes Crypto here. Super excited to have this interview set up with no other than Leemon Baird, the creator of the Hashgraph and co-founder at Hedera. I mean, Leemon, first of all, how are you doing? But you're the man that did the impossible. So one, how are you doing? And two, can you give us a quick rundown on how you created the Hashgraph?
Okay, you're very kind. And I'm doing well, thank you. I hope you're doing well too.
I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
Well, good. Yeah, well, I like to do math problems. So I just my habit, my hobby is to do math problems that I find interesting. And for some reason in 2012, I started being interested in could computers come to an agreement that's both fast and extremely secure. ABFT, but super fast. It wasn't that I wanted to fix blockchain. It wasn't that I wanted to do anything. It was a fun math problem. And so like with many of these problems, some I've been working on for decades. I'll never solve them, but they're fun. They're fun to work on. And so, I would pick it up and I would play with it and I would think about it and I would work my way through it and I would convince myself, yeah, it is impossible. You can't be secure and fast at the same time. And I'd set it aside. And then, after a while, a few months later, it'd come and gnaw at me again and I'd pick it up and I'd spend a few days working on it intensely and finally decide, yeah, it really is impossible and set it aside. I got lots of problems that I do this with. They're fun. But then in 2015, I said, wait a second. If every time you sent a message, you included the hash of the last message you received and the last one you created, then just those two little hashes on all our messages would mean that when you collect all the messages, you can put them together into a graph, and then you can see how information flowed through the network, and then you could run 30-year-old ABFT algorithms purely in your head, purely locally, with zero communication whatsoever, and they would all work. And you could have ABFT without all that extra communication. And so that was Hashgraph. And so that was fun. It was just a math problem. But then when it solved, when I saw there's actually a solution, we said, hey, we should build a ledger out of that.
Wow, that is some very, very impressive, and especially to see like how far it's come now. It's 2024 already. Like, imagine that, and I'm really excited to see where Hedera and the whole idea grows over the next like 5-10 years. So Leemon, I met you in Atlanta a couple months ago, and when we were there, you gave a wonderful speech on decentralized recovery, and I honestly feel like I could explain DREC fairly well, but you're here. So could you give a quick overview to the audience, what decentralized recovery is?
Oh, yeah. So the problem is that in the normal world, not Web3, not the stuff that we're trying to change the world with, in traditional world, you have a safety net for everything you do. If you lose the password to your bank account, you're going to be able to get back to your money. Worst case, you go to a court and they'll help you get in. If you lose the key to your house, you can get in somehow. Worst case, you throw a brick through a window. You can always get in somehow. There is always a safety net. You lose the keys to your crypto, guess what? There is no safety net. And I've received emails where someone says, hey, I lost my 24 recovery words. Would you mind generating another one for me? No, I can't do that. That's the whole point of decentralization. There's no way to do that. You are out of luck. And there's stories of people losing $100 million or people trying to go to the dump, go to a landfill and find the hard drive that somehow got thrown away. Okay. We have to have a safety net. And if we're really going to reach our potential as an industry to change the world, to go out and be mainstream and used by ordinary people, everything we do has to have this safety net. So what do? You do some kind of decentralized recovery when you lose stuff. And it's not just keys in crypto. It could also be your passwords. It could also be passkey information. It could be decentralized identity information. Anything that you have that is a secret, you need to split into pieces and give them to a bunch of friends or other companies to hold for you. That's what you really need. And you also need to check every day. This is the important part. Not only do I take my secret and I give it to 10 of my closest friends or my banker and my lawyer in another company, I also want my phone every day to check up and say, hey, do you still have that thing I gave you? Could you please cryptographically prove to me that you have every single bit and cosmic rays haven't flipped any of the bits? And that should all happen automatically, behind the scenes, invisibly, where the user doesn't think about it. And I guarantee you, if you don't do the checking up, eventually one of your friends is going to lose your secret and you won't know it and they won't know it. And then you know what's going to happen? Another day, one of your other friends is going to lose your secret. It's going to happen one by one until you're out of luck. And you won't know it until you need it and you're dead. So what you do instead is you have your phone, split it up, give it to them or your laptop, and then they are checked every night to make sure they still have it. They prove to you cryptographically that they still have it. And then when you are out of luck, when you lose your phone, you lose your secret, you can go to them. And if you can find half of them who still have it, you recover. This is decentralized recovery. Very simple idea. It's using Shamir secret sharing and stuff that's been around for decades. There's nothing fancy here, nothing new here, just very basic. I need to share my secrets. I need to have them help me recover. They need to not know who each other are. I should not be putting anything on a blockchain somewhere where the whole world knows that I'm using the system. No one should know I'm using the system. No one should know how many helpers I have. No one should know I have helpers. The helpers shouldn't know who each other are. And as long as I can remember at least half my helpers, I should be able to recover after I lose my information. This is what we need as an industry, not just the blockchain industry, the DLT industry, but broader. Passwords, passkeys, decentralized identity, any kind of secrets that are out there in the world. How do you get into your bank? All those things should all be doing this. And the danger is that we're going to end up with 10 different incompatible standards. Because it's very simple. Everybody can make up a standard. You could sit down and make up a standard. It's really simple. It's not rocket science. But if we all have incompatible standards, then with my wallet software for one blockchain, like Hedera, and you have a wallet on another blockchain like Algorand, we wouldn't be able to be each other's helpers. It tremendously limits your ability to do it. No, what we need is for wallets on Algorand and wallets on Hedera to be able to interoperate, where we can each use each other as a helper, even if we're on different blockchains. And so I shook hands on a stage with the CTO of the Algorand Foundation, and they are working with us to do this.
Yep. And you literally got my next question. It's like you read my mind. No, you're good. I mean, John Allen Woods and I, pretty good friends. I'm friends with the people over at Algorand. And I recently met you a few months ago. So I woke up one morning, I refreshed my Twitter, and I thought I was still dreaming because I saw a photograph of you on stage with John Allen Woods shaking hands. And I was like, what is happening? This is not real. So I wanted you to tell me more about the collaboration with Algorand, and it's with Decentralized Recovery, correct?
Exactly. So this is what we all need to do in our industry. We need to be working together. And there are other things too. Brad, the CEO of Ripple, had a big talk about how we need to work as an industry for finding scams and frauds and reporting them to each other and working together to stamp them out. And I talked with him, had an interview with him that was recorded, that we were both saying, yeah, we need to work together in an industry.
And that was my next question.
I'm sorry. I'm taking all your questions.
You're too good, man. You're too good.
But this is what we need. We as an industry need to make the entire world better. And right now, we're still small. We're in the early stages, but we need to go out and change the entire world. We need to be mainstream. Everything in the world needs to be using what we have to offer. And the way we do it is we work together as an industry. So DREC is the first part of this. I shook hands with John. He's a great guy. On stage about how Algorand and Hedera are working together in this DREC alliance. The DREC is going to be doing this. And we're talking to other ledgers and other blockchains and eventually we'll spread out and even do password managers. And I'd eventually like to see it built into iOS and Android as the password manager. But right now we're just trying to get people together. And to be honest, every time I have talked to someone, whether they are a blockchain or they're a wallet software company, whatever, they say, oh yeah, this is obviously what we need. Let's all work together. I have yet to hear someone say, nah, I'd rather go off on our own and not help you guys and not work together as an industry. I have yet to hear that. Everybody says, oh, we desperately need this. And it's obvious that we desperately need it. And if we generate 10 incompatible standards, then the world suffers. We do not reach the world and solve that and give them their safety nets. But if we all use similar standards, this is what's going to be. So it's not a Hedera standard. It is an industry-wide, planet-wide standard. And we're all getting together. We are all equals, and we're all building this thing so that everybody can do it.
Yeah, and what I like the most about DREC is that it's not just for your crypto code. It could be anything, Web2, any type of secret, anything. And it just so happens that it would be really convenient to, for your crypto bags or for whatever it is. I find that brilliant about Direct, that, the use cases for anything. That's the most impressive part about it in my mind, to be honest. So, I do want to kind of circle back. I mean, meeting Brad Garlinghouse in Davos, I mean, that's no little quick walk in the park. That's a big deal. So I do want to ask, like, what was it like meeting him, and are there any future plans of, like, with Ripple and Hedera working together?
He's a great guy. So was
Yep.
John. I enjoyed meeting
Yeah.
John too, John Woods. And then Brad Garlinghouse is great. He is very interested in all the things I just said about having the
Yep.
industry work together. And so
Right.
he was talking about, if you see a scam on your system, they're going to be scamming people on the other blockchains, on the other ledgers. They're going to be doing the same thing across the industry. Why don't we just tell each other what's going on? And why don't we work together to try to educate users? And why don't we just cooperate in trying to make this less of the Wild West and less of a scary place for users? That's how we go mainstream. And so it was great to talk with him. It was great to have an interview with him. I got to meet the president of Ripple as well.
Nice.
And she was great. And I look forward to talking more with them. It has been great, all the different conversations we're having in ways that we can cooperate. DREC is the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot of ways as an industry we can collaborate, and I'm interested in all these different ways of collaborating.
If DREC was already in place, I don't think Chris Larson's wallet would have gotten hacked. Just saying. So I do want to change gears here. I want to ask you, I have polled my audience and asked them for, if you could ask Leemon anything, what would you ask? So I have a couple questions like that. And the one question I got over and over was, in your opinion, Leemon, what is the biggest challenge currently facing Hedera?
Okay, so the biggest challenge for our industry as a whole is probably regulatory clarity. We need that. And we do have that in some countries, but maybe there's not all countries.
No.
Okay. And so this is widely understood. And I think we're going to get there. I think that what I have seen is that even where we don't have clarity, they are not saying, let's stamp out all ledgers, all blockchains, all DLTs, and just crush the industry. That would be foolish, not in the best interest of any country, and maybe not even successful. All it does is it moves them offshore to other countries that benefit from them. So what I see is a real desire to build it. Maybe not every agency has that desire right now, but I think every government has that desire right now. And I do think that in the long term, we will have regulatory clarity and this will become mainstream. I do think that, and the ETF thing was great. That happened recently.
Yeah.
That was exciting. I do think that we're going to see things like DREC that make it easier for people. I think we're going to see integration into apps you already have. So like LG built a Hedera wallet into their television sets. And so it just becomes part of your life. And we're talking to banks and credit unions that want to build it into the app you already have for your bank or your credit union. I think that what we're going to see is that more and more we will become mainstream and start to bring the incredible efficiencies of decentralization to the world as a whole. And that's what we really need. So we need to be doing all of those. And the last thing that I think that we really need is, I just have so many ideas of what we need to do, and I just wish we could do them all in one day. And so we are just making progress as fast as we can. And I wish we could go at light speed, or faster than light speed. But we're getting there too. It's very exciting.
Yeah, me too. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this video, we all want it to happen now. The word mass adoption is thrown around in crypto, and it's like, we are already here. So we're like, okay, like, speed it up. Like, I am with you on that sentiment for sure. So this question here is another one pulled from the audience. And the question is, can you elaborate on the role and the significance of the Hedera governing council, Hedera's governing council in the network's decision-making process?
Yeah. So this is the secret sauce, even more than Hashgraph is.
Yep.
This council means that we are well governed. And this is significant. It means you know who is governing the network. Now, you can have networks that say, well, everybody gets a say. Okay, you can start off that way. But what ultimately happens is a handful of people end up with all the power. That's just the way human nature works. It's the way organizations work. What we've done from the beginning is said, no, let's set it up transparently, where right now we have 30 council members, 30 gigantic organizations, top 10 in the world schools, universities, and then top Fortune 100 companies. We have people that are large, are well-known, have a reputation to protect. So you can't bribe them $1 million to do something unethical and destroy their name. Now, maybe you could bribe them $1 trillion, maybe even a few $billion, but you can't bribe them with only $1 million because
Right.
it means everything to them. They will lose $1 billion if their reputation is tarnished. And I don't trust any particular council member, but they keep tabs on each other. It's checks and balances. And I trust that out of the 30 of them, you're not going to find multiple ones being evil, because first of all, it doesn't work. You'd have to have more than a dozen of them being evil and working together. And secondly, they can't get away with it. It will be transparent. Everyone will know, and it will destroy their reputations. And so they act as checks and balances on each other. What do they decide? They decide what code goes on to mainnet. So they know the features and so on. They are deciding that. They're deciding the pricing. They're deciding how staking rewards work, and how rewards to the nodes will work, and how the transaction fees work. And we have really cheap transaction fees, and they manage that. And we have transaction fees denominated in dollars rather than HBARs, so that you have predictable costs. This matters a lot. It matters a lot to the average person, and it matters a whole lot to a company that's trying to build a company on Hedera and needs to be able to predict the prices. So the council is governing those things. It has a number of committees that are looking at things, like the technical committee that I chair is looking at the technical things like the features, and the coin committee, the economics committee that I chair, CoinCom, is looking at all of the economic factors and the pricing and those sorts of things. And then we have other committees for who should be in the council. That's the other thing the council controls, is who gets to join the council. It's self-serving or self-defining, self-creating. I don't pick the council members anymore. I did for the first few, because there wasn't a council, but it has turned over to the council itself is building the council. And so you can ensure that it's going to be good, and it's going to be decentralized in every country, in every continent. We're on every continent right now except for Antarctica. And who knows, maybe we'll fix that too. But we're in every continent. We're in many different countries under different governments. We have people who are universities and who are companies, and we have companies in different fields, and universities that specialize in different fields. We have great decentralization. And so the governing council is critical. I think over time, it's going to become the most important factor of why people trust Hedera. Not that you trust any one of the council members. I would never trust any one person anywhere, but because you know who they are, and they're keeping tabs on each other, and they have this reputation to protect, and all the meetings they have, the minutes are published to the world. This is what builds trust, is that not to trust any single person, but that you trust them to be keeping tabs on each other. And this is the secret sauce of Hedera, even more than Hashgraph. It's this.
For sure. The word trust is synonymous with Hedera, the trust layer of the internet. And the more you learn about Hedera, the more you realize, how powerful that one sentence really is, So we recently saw that Hitachi has joined the Hedera Governing Council, and the announcement said that they were interested in developing supply chain and sustainability solutions. And given that, like Hyundai and Kia and Avery Dennison are also building in this niche, do you think Hedera has kind of cornered this high throughput type market?
We are getting a lot of traction. The whole world, interesting. The whole world is very excited. Finally, only now are we starting to see the traction in using Hedera and other ledgers for supply chain tracking and provenance tracking and tracking of other sorts of information, and being able to tokenize things of value, and doing this in the green world of carbon credits and carbon footprints. You can even tokenize that and then balance it out with your carbon credits. And there's energy. You can have green energy that you have markets for, or dirty energy that's then bundled with credits and you buy them as a pair. All these things are being done on Hedera. Part of the reason is that we are the greenest ledger. We have less carbon footprint per transaction of anybody, that any of the major blockchains or ledgers. And then we buy carbon credits to be carbon neutral and buy a few more to be carbon negative. So we do all of that. That's one of the reasons that we're so popular here. But it's also, you have high throughput, low latency. It's very fast, and it's predictable pricing, very low pricing. To record information is, a 100th of a cent. So a 10,000th of a US dollar to record information. That's important. Wow. And you can do it 10,000 times a second, and we'll grow beyond that as the traffic rises. We'll increase that limit. And so you have the speed, you have the low latency, you have the low pricing, and inherent greenness makes it natural to build green things on top of us. But also just those factors are very important. And if you're going to risk your entire business building on a blockchain, you want one that's well governed. I mean, that really is the case. And if you're a little startup, you want to build on a blockchain, you still want one that's well governed. You want it to be around for a while. And so that's why we're getting so much traction in this area right now.
Hedera really is the complete package when you look at it just from an objective point of view. It's hard to argue that. It really is. So I want to ask you like kind of a more serious question. Leemon, what is, Hedera is a big company and there's a lot of people. What is your priority for 2024?
My priority is quite a few. I'm a little bit busy right now.
Yeah.
We want to change the world. How do you change the world? Well, you get users actually using it. And the thing we just talked about is about that. We are seeing enormous adoption right now of people starting to use it, which is fantastic. Big organizations, big usages. We have more transactions per second than any other ledger right now. It's well over 1,000 transactions every second happen on Hedera. And this is part of tracking lots of objects. The next step of that is going to be not just tracking them, but tokenizing them. And then you can do things like borrow against things that are in your supply chain before you've even sold them, using them as collateral to borrow with microfinancing. This is the real DeFi. There is the DeFi where you take coins you've created and then you loan them to buy more coins that have been created to loan to buy more coins. There's that's called DeFi. But what I'm talking about is tokenizing actual assets moving through your supply chain and then doing deep finance where you get loans against those to help you build your factory and to be running. So that's different kind of finance, decentralized finance.
Wow.
You could say that's real DeFi. This is something that all the traffic you're getting right now to track objects is next step is going to be tokenizing them. And then the step after that is doing things like real DeFi on those tokens. So this is something that is needed, and we're seeing this. The ledger itself, we continue to add features to it. And I'm spending a lot of my time talking to people about the design of what these new features are going to be in the future. What's the architecture of the future going to be? And there's all sorts of things. There's state proofs that allows you to prove that you have what you think you have. You can ask it, what's my balance? It'll tell you and cryptographically prove to you that it was the consensus of the whole group. And this then can be used for interledger communication. It can be used for sharding. All those things we're working on, which is exciting. We have the HIP process that I spend time with, where the community is saying, here are the features we want, and then we build them. Well, how does that work? Well, it goes through the council, it goes through the TechCom committee to look at them. We prioritize them. We figure out what we can do and what we can't do. Conversations go back and forth among the community and between us and the community about how we could build it best. And then these things get implemented and rolled out. And we're constantly rolling out HIPs that have become part of the network. And these are the Hedera improvement process suggestions from the community, designed by the community, discussed by the community, and then finally end up on the ledger. So this is exciting. And I spent a lot of time with that. I spent a lot of time with DREC, creating this alliance of all the different blockchains coming together. And honestly, this is the first step. The second step is we branch out to password managers. Why can't 1Password support it? Why can't it become part of iOS and Android, the password manager that it has built in? What we're doing as a group, not Hedera, all the groups together, working together as a group, is we're building libraries that make it so that if you have any kind of program with a few secrets, you had a couple lines of code, and now suddenly you're DREC compliant using these libraries, and you can interoperate with anybody else that's DREC compliant. And that's taking up a lot of my time. All these things are taking up my time right now, and it looks like we have a lot coming to fruition in 2024. Plus, who knows? Maybe the whole crypto world is seeing a spring, no longer a winter. Maybe we're starting to see things like that ETF thing that happened and maybe more things along those lines. There are reasons to be optimistic that 2024 is just a cool year where a lot of really important things in this industry, and for Hedera in particular, are going to be happening.
Yep, certainly. It is certainly a very exciting time to be in crypto. We've seen previous halvings. I've been around, and we've seen what happens 18 months after those halvings, and we're almost at the next halving. So this is certainly the time for everybody out there to learn as much as you can, absorb as much information as you can, and be there when the time comes. So so I want to ask you, another niche in blockchain that has really kind of taken off lately has been the intersection between AI and blockchain. And given your PhD was in AI and you created the Hashgraph, can you see a future where Hedera is used as a trust layer for large language models and other AI use cases?
Absolutely. So yeah, my background's in AI. That's my PhD in Carnegie Mellon was AI, and it was reinforcement learning that works with deep neural networks, which is all magic words you're hearing today a lot. But
I feel very I feel like very like eighth grade talking to you sometimes, man.
Oh, no. I'm just saying these are the things that people are
I
excited
know.
about right now. All these LLMs use deep neural networks, and they're using reinforcement with humans in the loop. These are terms we're hearing now, and that's what I was working on back then. It's just really exciting to see happening. It really is. It's very exciting to see all this happening. So what is the intersection between the two? Well, for one thing, provenance of the data that you use to train it. So the cool thing is that you don't have to program anything. It basically just all comes down to training on the training data. The bad thing, of course, is that if your training data is bad, that means you're guaranteed to get a bad thing. And so you need good training data. For reinforcement learning, it's a little bit less of a problem, but for things like these LLMs, it's a huge issue. You will have the biases of your training data, and there's people worried about biases. This can actually hurt people, right? If you're using these to decide who gets a credit card, who gets into school or whatever, you can actually harm human beings if your AI is biased. And depending on the training data, it may be biased. So you've got to know the training data. So how do you do that? Well, you have provenance. Well, it's the same as the provenance we're doing on Hedera with other things. How do you know this diamond isn't a blood diamond? Well, you have the provenance. You have the whole history of it. How do I know this vial of vaccine for COVID was cold at every step along the way? Well, the refrigerators actually electronically reported to Hedera, and you have the record of how cold it was at every step along the way. Same thing for these LLMs. And so recently I was on a stage where Equity Labs was announcing their system where on Hedera, where they're keeping track of the provenance of the training data for LLMs, large language models, for those who don't know, the AI, like ChatGPT, these just things that blow your mind. And so what they would do is they would be able to store an entire tree. You would say, well, this data was used to train this model. And then this other data was used to tune that model and make it learn some more. And this other data came in to make it learn some more. And for each of those data sets, it knows the hash and it knows how they connected together. And you have this whole tree of how these models combined. There might have even been two different models trained with different data, and then somehow they were combined by having inputs and outputs of one being used to train the other one to tune it. So you had this whole tree of how the data was brought in and ended up affecting your final one. And everything is hashed, everything is digitally signed, and then everything is on Hedera. So you can always go back and check it. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is what we're seeing right now. The next step will be permissioning. Right now, there's work on Hedera to permission your medical data so that only the doctors you want to see it will see it. Only the medical studies that you want to allow to use it will be allowed to use it. Why not
like
do this?
HIPAA, but better?
HIPAA requires all sorts of interesting things. So this is one way of trying to satisfy HIPAA while being less of a nightmare for patients.
Interesting.
Right, yeah, getting data between doctors is a nightmare. Lots of things are a nightmare. They're trying to solve that. But those are the exact same things we need for AI. Maybe everybody who is contributing data that will be used to train an AI has to give permission and has the ability to revoke it. If you didn't have to revoke, then yeah, we could just use digital signatures. Yeah, you sign on the dotted line, and now for the rest of your life, you never get your data back. But if you have Hedera in the process or a ledger, it can remember revocation. And so you give permission for a doctor to use your data. And then when you switch doctors, you revoke the permission. They don't have permission anymore. Same thing for AI. You could give permission for your data to be used to train these AIs. And then if you revoke it, they can't be used to train any more AIs. All of that could be done. But then the third step is made possible by that, which would be micro royalties. Maybe when people are paying to use an AI, tiny slivers of that money goes to all the people who contributed data for that AI. Why not? And this deals with interesting things. You hear people saying it isn't right for an art generator like DALL-E 2 to be using public domain art that was created by people who are still alive. You know, you shouldn't be able to do that. Now, the counter argument is, well, human artists were trained by looking at pictures. Do they send royalties to every picture they looked at in their life? Okay, it's an interesting question. So I don't actually know where it comes out. Maybe we'll decide that royalties really don't make sense. Or maybe we'll decide that they do make sense. Or they make sense in some situations and not others. And for situations where they make sense, you have to be able to do micro payments. It doesn't make sense to write someone a check for 1/10 of a cent. First of all, you can't even do it. But even writing a check for one whole penny doesn't make any sense because you're going to spend way more than a penny to send them that check. But with ledgers, with Hedera, you can send them a millionth of an HBAR. You could send them a millionth of a token you've created for this. All that can happen. So that's another step. And then the last part is maybe AI can help us by looking at a smart contract and looking for bugs in the code. Or maybe even AI can do automated proof assistance, which means that you could have a program that mathematically proves that your smart code contract, your smart contracts code doesn't have any bugs or any bugs of a certain class of bugs. And I'm very excited about the use of AI for that. Google just announced some amazing progress where they were almost winning math contests with the computer being able to prove math proofs. Have you heard about that? Really exciting. Math Olympiad questions in geometry. Yeah, really cool stuff. So this is what personally I'm most excited about. COQ proved that Hedera hash graph, or proved that the hash graph algorithm is ABFT. It was really hard to do. It took a master, Carl Crary at Carnegie Mellon, to do that. But maybe with AI, we could make it where ordinary people could do it. And any mathematician that's able to write a proof could also have a computer check their proof. You don't need any extra expertise and spend hundreds of hours extra. These are the ways they intersect. A few of them.
A few of them anyway. That's so I think like AI is such like an interesting conversation right now, mainly because it's so controversial. Like, yeah, we've all seen, the Will Smith movie, Neuralink is like happening right now. Like the first patient has a Neuralink in their brain. And obviously I feel like I'm not going to ask the question, is AI, a net positive or net negative for the world? Obviously, I think we agree that it's a net positive, but what is like your answer to the safety aspect of AI?
Okay, so first of all, anytime you build a hammer, somebody's going to use it to hurt people, and that's bad. But you can also use it to drive nails, and that's good. And so everything can be used for good or harm. And the more powerful it is, the more powerful good and more powerful harm it can be used for. We absolutely should be worrying about AI. We should be worrying about biases in it. We should be worrying about it hurting people accidentally. We should be worrying more about bad guys using it to hurt people on purpose. This generative AI, ChatGPT and so on, we have to worry about, what about a bad guy that spins up 1,000 social media sock puppets and has them all be in an echo chamber talking about something they're trying to convince everyone of, and then people just absorb it. We as a society will have to learn to not be persuaded by that, but be persuaded by more reliable sources. All of those things we need to be doing. The provenance stuff that I talked about is a part of that. And maybe eventually we all just have to learn, never believe a video you see until you find out who digitally signed that they made that video, and you have to believe that person. We may have to train ourselves for that. Because AI is going to be able to make absolutely perfect videos that show anything. And so we're just going to have to learn as a society. It's the only way to deal with some of the downsides of AI. If you want to know more about what I think about the future of AI, Mance and I just recorded a first principles talk where we just sat around and talked for a half hour about the future of AI. So watch that.
Yeah, maybe we'll I'll find that and put the link down in the description if anybody wants to watch that after they watch this interview here. Awesome. So I want to pivot here and talk a little bit about HBAR itself. In terms of the supply, there's a little bit, almost 70% of the circulation of the coins are in circulation out of the 50 billion. So it is a fixed supply. It's not like it's inflationary. It's a fixed supply. But so there is a lot of people are wondering, is there an expectation on when the rest of the coins will come into circulation?
Yeah, so it's a 50 billion fixed supply. We will not have any inflation of the number of HBARs. That would take a unanimous vote of the council. The council was actually designed to require for a few things. It takes a unanimous vote, which is never happening. And inflation was actually written into the bylaws. We will not inflate without a unanimous vote. Okay, inflation.
That won't happen. Right.
It'll never happen. It's just, it's a horrible thing. So it would take a unanimous vote of the council to do it. And a lot of people have enough sense to vote no on that.
Yes.
Of those 50 billion that will never change, most of them have been released, more than 2/3 now. And the last will trickle out over time. And so I don't know, it probably goes asymptotic, right? So it goes, that's what you would expect. Most things like this goes like this, and the tail goes forever, but it's almost zero forever. But who knows? It's up to the council. This is one of the things the council has to vote on and decide, so that you don't take that third of the coins and dump them tomorrow on the market all at once, because that would be bad, and they wouldn't do that. They're exercising good stewardship of those coins. But as you said, it's a fixed supply. Most of them released already, more than 2/3. And over time, more being released. And what they're being used for is, just recently it was announced, they're being used to build the ecosystem. So they're being given to the 3 grant-giving organizations. So there's the HBAR Foundation, the Hashgraph Association, and the DLT Science Foundation. They're being given to them, and then they give grants to people that are building companies on top of the Hedera, or building applications on top of Hedera, or they are exchanges and bridges and oracles and custody services, services around the ecosystem of Hedera, all that stuff. And they just keep building those things. They keep growing, and more HBARs are going for that. So the HBARs that get released are often being used for the things that I just said, and a million other things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your thought of like, the kind of the meme coin madness going on right now? Any takes on that?
Well, there's all kinds of madness, and it comes and goes, and it's just fun to watch madness. But people get really into all these different things. And
Sure.
you could ask, why are people so excited about all these little things that are sometimes silly things? And the answer is, they see in the silly thing what the future will be. It's the harbinger of the future. And so there may be people doing silly things with blockchain because it's fun to do silly things. Why not? But also because they just intuitively feel that what they are demonstrating is abilities that will be used in the real world for real things. And I get very excited about the real world applications. But the real world applications started with silly things. And why shouldn't it? That makes sense. The very first cars were just sort of demonstrations and just kind of for fun. And they weren't very good. But they showed what's going to come to the whole industry. It will someday be a car industry. Yeah, that's really cool.
I don't even really think that like meme coins are silly. I think that they're a window to mass adoption. I remember last bull run, if kids from my high school or my little sister would ask me about crypto, they wouldn't ask me about Algorand or the Graph or Hedera. They would ask me about Dogecoin. You know what I mean? So I really think meme coins do serve their purpose, and they should be looked at in a more positive light, in my opinion. So first of all, Leemon, thank you so much for your time. Really, really always great time talking to you. Really appreciate it. But before we wrap, I want to ask, what makes you the most excited about the future of Hedera and its community? Like, what are you most proud of?
Okay, I am extremely proud of our community. The HBARbarians, the people that are just so fantastic. I love it. I love what you're doing. I just really get excited about the ground roots community building this. And that goes along with seeing actual real world mainstream adoption of this. We've been waiting so many years for this, and we're seeing it happening, and it is gratifying. The one thing I'm excited about is those two things, just this fantastic community we have and the way that it's actually changing the world.
I love it. Awesome. Leemon, thank you so much for your time. Big shout out to all the HBARbarians out there. Make sure you smash the like button, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Maybe in a year we'll circle back and do another interview. But Leemon, thank you so much. And everybody have a great rest of your day. Later.
Thanks.